So when someone comes to me and says, Glenn, I'm not turning enough, it's obvious to me what's going on. They're not allowing their lead arm and hand to go back with enough torque to bring their shoulder, to move their hips, to move their legs, or to move their feet, because there's probably too much tension in there or resistance. And when you come through, if you can allow your arm to swing out, your left arm, allowing your right hand to stay with it, then your body will move to accommodate it. When I see people over there hitting a golf ball by the chipping green, I see them topping and gouging and scraping and all that kind of stuff. Those are the keys right there. If they would allow their lead arm to keep leading, the angle would form because of the hinge, which will allow them to hit the ball. First place to start, if you're a miserable pitch shot or chip shot person, is right here. Start with your lead arm, pushing the club back, allowing your body to move. Don't create all that tension where it doesn't move, because then you're going to try to do it all with your hands. Because the minute you restrict your movement out of your body, your arm cannot flow. Therefore, it's going to go right to your hands to try to accomplish everything. And then they're going to get so much tension in them, they don't move at all except to push. So that's how you avoid that disaster. Let your body free up. Now, any questions on that part so far? Now, when you do this, if you watch my swing, I'm back, I'm through. Everything looks pretty nicely timed. There's no issue. It looks very natural. Now, I had somebody the other day who was out giving them a lesson, and this looked how they were doing it. They got the idea that heel should come off the ground and the knee should bend in. But here's how it went. Now, oh, they were doing great. Now, you can see that there wasn't something that was right there. There's a sequence to a golf swing. The sequence is really born out of your lead arm and hand. Because if my shoulder, if you were thinking about turning your shoulders to move your arms, how far would you turn your shoulder to move the club back a foot? Or 2 feet? Or 3 feet? Or halfway? Or 3/4 of the way? Your shoulders don't control your arm controls it. And now the one thing that will allow you to determine how far you're going to take the club back, two things really, the distance you're trying to go and the pace you swing. In other words, if I'm going to go a short distance, having the information that I've just told you, what kind of a swing would you take? A short swing. And if you wanted to go a long distance, you would take a long swing. Well, doesn't that seem obvious? If you want to hit the ball a long way, you need a long swing. Because the long swing gives you more time to build up the speed. A short swing doesn't. So if you're going to take a short swing and try to hit it a long way, you're the one who has to supply the power. And how do you do that? By pushing with your right hand, most of it. So you can see it's self-defeating the minute you go down that road. But the key to it is if you could just have a flow to your swing. A swing that goes back, through, and just let it pass through the ball. Then you'll hit the ball, then you'll take about 3 inches of divot past the ball. So a swing is a swing. As my mentor used to say in his golf exhibitions, swing is the most important word in a golfer's vocabulary. More important than hell or damn or that famous Japanese word, ah shit. Now the reason it's so important is it's the glue that holds everything together. When you're pushing the club at the ball or you're hitting at the ball, you are in trouble. And I got to tell you, I could have many of you hit a ball off a tee beautifully. You make your swings, you hit them good, and you're begging me, oh, put it on the ground. This is cheating on a tee. You still have to make a swing, even if it's on a tee. But there's a reason that I bend over all day long teeing up golf balls for people. The tee, this little white peg, is the great relaxer. So before I can get you to make a swing, I've got to take the tension and anxiety out of it. Well, when I put a ball on a tee, the ball's already in the air. All you got to do is keep it in the air. It's a lot easier than if it's sitting down in a bare lie or a tight lie. And I would have to tell you that this winter, most of you probably played your worst golf of your whole golfing career. And I can tell you exactly why. The grass did not grow this winter. We were running 39 wind chills in the morning out here. This is Florida grass. And if you look in just the last week, it's green again. The temperature at night is still in the 70s. This grass is really cooking. And if you've been playing golf and you notice, wow, these greens are getting slow right now. Well, the grass is suddenly taking that fertilizer and it's growing like crazy. So you're going to see George Cavern, our superintendent, you'll start to see thin little lines in the greens from here on. That's called a groomer or a verticutter if he goes really deep with them. And what it does is it pulls out doesn't pull it, it clips it, every other blade of grass, so to speak. It thins out the greens. So now you're not going to have as much grass on there, and you will notice these greens will start getting faster, probably starting the middle of this week. Because our greens normally run at over 10 on the Stimpmeter. That's a little rail that they hold up and they drop a ball. It's in a little bit of a groove on there, and the minute that rail gets to the right height, the ball rolls down it. And it rolls a certain, in the direction, and it might roll 10 feet, 12 feet, 8 feet. They mark that spot, and then they go back from that spot back to where the original roll started, and they take the average, and that is what we call a stimp. Now, it's measured in feet. So if our greens are running 10, on that rail that they lift up, it's just a 90-degree piece of angle iron that he lifts up, and then once it lifts up to the right height, the ball pops out of the groove and rolls down it, and that's how they measure how many feet it rolls. You do that on the flat. So if it's 10, it actually averaged 10 feet going back and forth on the same putt. Now, once they get over 10, we start to get very fast, because what happens is when you get on the slopes, they're not 10. If you're going downhill and it's a 10, it might be a 12, 14, even higher. This week, if you get to watch the Masters, they are some of the fastest greens on the tour. And they will drive those guys nuts, because they will probably stimp at around 13 or more, which means they are like lightning. They're like putting on linoleum. The ball will not stop. So now they've added another whole dimension to the game. Now the player has to keep the ball below the hole, because if he's above it, once that ball gets rolling, it's almost impossible to stop, and I can guarantee you won't see it on TV very often because they don't show them. But some of those guys will be putting the ball right off the green, into a water hazard, into a bunker. 15th hole, a lot of times you see it at the Masters, because if they're behind the green, that green slopes, and boy does it get fast. It's a par 5, a reachable par 5 for most, but if they're above the hole, they are in trouble. And many of the greens, I don't know if you've ever been to Augusta, they are like dead elephants buried everywhere. Lots of moguls and slopes in those greens, very treacherous. But for your standpoint, notice that the greens are going to start getting faster. Be ready for it. So if you're thinking about it and you can do it, try to keep the ball below the hole as opposed to above it.